In 2025, several high-profile rappers, including Lil Durk, have been released from jail under dramatic circumstances. The truth behind the crimes they were accused of committing is now being revealed inside the courtroom. The revelations have sparked controversy, with new evidence emerging, along with claims about the involvement of various figures in the criminal activities linked to these rappers. Lil Durk's legal team, for instance, has created multiple strategies aimed at securing his release, with some of their tactics drawing comparisons to the high-profile Wessel trial. One of the central issues in Lil Durk's case revolves around his lyrics, which his lawyers have argued were not confessions or admissions of guilt, but were instead exaggerated artistic expressions. This argument is grounded in the belief that some of the lyrics that prosecutors have used against Durk, especially those referencing violence, were self-sentiments and not evidence of real-life events. His lawyers have pointed out that Durk's lyrics should be considered as part of his musical storytelling rather than literal confessions. A major part of the defense strategy has been the alibi provided for Lil Durk's involvement in the death of a man known as Lil Pab. According to Durk's producer, the song Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy featuring Babyface Ray, one of the key pieces of evidence, was recorded months before the tragic passing of Lil Pab, and thus couldn't possibly be related to the incident, which prosecutors suggested it was. The producers of the track have submitted the original projects file, which includes the date the song was created, and this evidence is pivotal in challenging the prosecution's theory. The defense argues that the lyrics prosecutors pointed to, particularly those about someone screaming on the sidewalk, are merely coincidental. However, prosecutors were not backing down. They presented new evidence against Durk, including over 230 gigabytes of digital materials like audio recordings, videos, surveillance footage, and thousands of pages of investigative reports. This evidence, they claim, ties Durk to a string of violent acts. DJ academics even discussed how Durk's albums seem to follow a pattern that eerily coincides with the timeline of tragic events in his personal life. From the death of his brother in 2020, to the targeting and death of his associates in 2021 and 2022, to the release of his 2023 album, I'm Almost Healed, the albums appear to outline a roadmap of grief, revenge, and ultimately healing. The prosecution argued that Durk's lyrics seem to chronicle a journey of loss and vengeance, culminating in what they suggest is a confession of sorts. DJ academics pointed out how the albums align with a timeline of his brother's death, the killings of several individuals close to him, and the eventual release of I'm Almost Healed. The album's title itself is seen as a possible indicator of Durk's emotional journey, going from grief to an eventual attempt at healing, though the prosecutors argue this is an explicit confession of past crimes. In addition to the mounting evidence, reports surfaced that Durk's longtime co-defendant, OTFDD, was considering a plea deal. The passing of Lil Pab wasn't the only case linking Durk to violence. Other cases involving OTF members had surfaced, implicating Durk in a variety of alleged crimes. The federal authorities were reportedly zeroing in on two separate murders, one involving the death of Stefan Mack, who had been connected to Durk's brother's passing, and another involving OTFJM's baby mother, who allegedly wore a wire for federal agents. Authorities believe that Durk had been involved in orchestrating these murders, using his influence over his associates. One of the most chilling pieces of evidence in the case against Durk came from social media, specifically an Instagram post where Durk allegedly made light of the passing of Stefan Mack. Durk reportedly wrote a mocking post just hours after Mack's death, further fueling the prosecution's argument that the rapper was involved in the targeted attack. This post, along with other social media interactions, was used by the prosecution as evidence that Durk had been involved in the murder of Mack as an act of retaliation for the death of his brother D-Thing. Further complicating Durk's case was a live stream interview with Brick Baby, a fellow rapper who had been involved in the case. During the interview, Brick Baby claimed that Durk had been actively involved in seeking revenge for the death of King Von, a close friend of Durk's, who was also tragically killed. Brick Baby's statements seemed to confirm the theory that Durk had been orchestrating violent acts to avenge the deaths of his loved ones. According to the prosecution, Brick Baby's comments suggested that Durk had been involved in planning the killings of several individuals, including the murder of Lil Pab and the targeting of King Von's suspected killers. As the evidence piled up, it became clear that Lil Durk's case had become one of the most complex and high-stakes trials in recent years. Prosecutors alleged that Durk had been part of a network of individuals using violence as a means of settling scores, while his legal team worked tirelessly to discredit the evidence and defend their client. The most significant challenge to Durk's release came when prosecutors revealed that they had discovered new digital evidence, including thousands of pages of reports and hours of video footage, all of which seemed to point to Durk's involvement in these violent acts. The massive amount of data being processed for discovery only deepened the sense of urgency around the case. In response to these developments, Lil Durk's legal team presented new arguments in favor of his release. One of the key strategies involved claims that Durk had been the victim of a conspiracy, and that the evidence presented against him was both circumstantial and unreliable. His lawyers argued that the bulk of the evidence was based on hearsay, music lyrics, and social media posts that could easily be misinterpreted. They pointed out that Durk had not been officially charged in many of the cases connected to him, and they emphasized his right to be released pending further investigation. Another tactic used by Durk's defense team was to argue that his time in jail had been harsh and detrimental to his mental health. Reports emerged claiming that Durk had been targeted in jail due to his status as a high-profile rapper, leading to mistreatment and harassment by other inmates. This, they argued, was grounds for his release, as it was believed that his life was in danger. The idea was to present Durk as someone who had already suffered significantly as a result of his incarceration, and that further punishment was not warranted. While Durk's team worked to highlight the flaws in the prosecution's case, there were also legal maneuvers aimed at getting his bond lowered or his sentence reduced. As part of their efforts, Durk's lawyers filed motions that sought to discredit key witnesses, including Brick Baby, whose interview had raised suspicions about Durk's involvement in various crimes. They argued that Brick Baby's statements were unreliable and biased, as he had his own motivations for speaking out against Durk. This, they claimed, should call into question the credibility of the evidence against their client. The court hearings took a dramatic turn when the feds revealed that they were looking into multiple cases involving Durk's associates. The ongoing investigation was far-reaching, and it was clear that the authorities were trying to build a case not just against Durk, but against an entire network of individuals. These investigations were seen as an attempt to break apart the operations of OTF and other groups associated with Durk by targeting the people around him in an effort to force Durk to cooperate or face serious charges. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Durk's defense team remained optimistic about his chances of being released in 2025. They pointed to a range of factors, including the lack of concrete charges in some of the cases, the unreliability of the digital evidence, and the poor conditions Durk had faced while incarcerated. Durk's lawyers were confident that they could convince the court to grant him bond, or at the very least, reduce the severity of his sentence. The legal battle over Lil Durk's release was far from over, and with each new development, it seemed as though the stakes were only getting higher. As his case continued to unfold, fans and critics alike remained divided over whether Durk would ever be able to clear his name and return to his career. For now, all that was certain was that 2025 would be a pivotal year for the rapper as he faced a series of legal hurdles that could shape the course of his future. In the meantime, Lil Durk's story continued to capture public attention as both the prosecution and defense prepared for the next round of hearings. The drama surrounding his case seemed to only intensify, with every new revelation adding another layer of complexity to an already high-profile legal saga. Whether or not Durk would be released in 2025 remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: his battle in court was far from over.